Are you a self-taught artist? If you are, that's great. I'm largely one myself. There are lots of great advantages and benefits and joys in being that. But there are some challenges as well. Let me identify 6 mindsets that I believe are very common but very unhelpful in learning to draw. But are, I think, particular dangers for the self-taught artists, because we may not ever come across a place that spells these out. There is a progression in the order I've put them, and let me say I think it's probably 5 and 6 which are both the most common and the most impacting on our drawing development and experience. But we'll start at number 1. And the first one is to think that we're talented at art. Now, where this thought comes from is often from other people being impressed by what we've done. And often it comes from our childhood. Now, exactly what talent is, and if it's even a thing at all, I don't know. My personal belief is that probably what we call talent is really rather the natural inclination to want to pursue something, to be interested in something, to wanting to draw in the first place. There are many things I could learn to do that I simply don't want to. So maybe when, at least it seems, we're born with an interest and with a drive to do something, and we can produce results that, for our age, impress some people at least, then we start to hear that we have a talent for drawing. But the impression, as always, is that this is some sort of innate natural ability. And the problem with it is that it sets me up to think that learning to draw is going to be just basically releasing the creative flows from me and perhaps picking up a couple of technical skills, learning how to draw straight lines and so forth. The second, at best, I think, unhelpful mindset is one to which the self-taught learner is particularly exposed, and that's the idea that if I watch enough content, if I see enough videos, I will pick up all there is to know, and that will push my improvement rapidly. Now, this is understandable because if I'm self-taught, then I'm either choosing books to read or I'm choosing, and this is probably more likely for most of us because it's easier and cheaper, I'm choosing videos to watch. And it's easy for us to think that fundamentally all the videos are the same in terms of their benefit to my learning to draw, but it's simply not true. Creators make videos for all sorts of reasons and motivations. And an important thing to remember is that videos of drawing can be made very entertaining, because watching anyone do a skill, perform in some way to a high level is very entertaining for many people to watch. But because a video is entertaining to watch doesn't mean that it's necessarily a good video for me to watch to improve my drawing. Not every video I watch will be relevant to where I want to end up, but I may not know enough to know that when I'm watching it. Or any video, whether it's for entertainment or not, may not actually be based on sound teaching and learning principles. And it may encourage me in practices that in the end will lead me away from where I want to go for short-term success, rather than pushing me forward to longer-term and deeper improvement. And of course, the problem we can easily fall into is that we spend more time watching videos than drawing. If we have any sort of avoidance of starting to draw for any reason, but probably particularly fear of making a mistake, then watching videos can actually become a substitute for drawing ourselves. And even the best of videos teaches nothing at all for our drawing improvement if we don't then put time into drawing. And if you're finding this interesting, then please hit the like button and help me out as well. Why not do it right now? My third unhelpful mindset follows on from that, and that's the thought that if I watch other artists draw enough and if I look at their work enough, I may even copy their artwork. That somehow if I see them doing what they do enough, it will somehow transfer into me by some sort of creative osmosis process, and I will just start to find myself doing what they do. But I would say the key thing for an artist in creating an artwork is the creative thinking that directs everything in their head beforehand, before the ink hits the paper. Because I need to either look at a reference I'm going to use as my starting point for drawing, I need to look at something in front of me that I'm going to draw, or I need to delve into my imagination for memories of things that I've seen and stored there to bring out and collate in some way and to use in my drawing. And then I've got to work out what marks or lines will create whatever objects, but more significantly, whatever effects overall I want to have for both the various components in my drawing, the various subject elements, if you like, but also the overall combination of all of these into the total scene. What am I wanting to achieve, and what marks and lines and value, if I'm going to put tone on it, will help me achieve that? It's not being able to put the marks on the paper. It's not having the skill to draw the straight line or the curve or whatever sort of line or mark we need. And most of the time in most videos, when we're watching an artist draw, we can't see into their mind and understand this process. And in some videos, the artist may share their thought processes. I certainly try to in most of mine. But in the end, we only learn to do this by doing it. And I absolutely believe that this ability to creatively think and translate what we're wanting to achieve onto our paper is the overwhelmingly major part of drawing. This fourth point flows from that third one. Because if I'm thinking that my natural talent will just flow, will be inspired by what I see other people doing, and that I just need to learn a few technical skills, I just need to learn, in fact, how to draw the straight lines and the curves and so forth, how to crosshatch, that's the challenge, instead of thinking that it's all the thought processes that in the end tell you what to do and direct your hand, that's the challenge. If I think it's the technical side, then I'm always going to be searching for the videos that show me the tips, the hacks, the shortcuts for achieving technical skill success. Because I'm believing that that's the thing, that's the area of lack that's holding me back from drawing improvement. When the truth is, I can have all the technical skill in the world putting marks on paper. But if I haven't got the creative thought processes to translate what I'm seeing into marks to create an effect, I won't know which of them to use, where to use them, or how to use them. And sometimes the desire to find the tips, the hacks, and the shortcuts is simply impatience. And impatience has never helped anyone achieve anything to a high level. And now for points 5 and 6, which I did flag, I think are probably going to be the most significant take-homes for people from this. But if you are finding this helpful, please, if you didn't hit the like button sooner and you're still with me now, then why not hit it right now? Point 5, I've said a number of times in different contexts. But this seems to me both a very common and devastatingly unhelpful mindset to have. And that's that at the end of my drawing session, I'm going to have an artwork that when you sit down to draw, what you're doing is producing art. Now, that's true for artists. That's true for many people. But it's not true when we're conscious that we're still in the learning to draw stage of our artistic development, of our drawing development. When I'm learning to draw, I'm not producing artworks. I'm learning to draw. And if I think that an artwork is what I'm aiming to have at the end, then that becomes our focus, and our focus gives us guidance in our thinking and our choices to get to the place that we're focusing on. And some of the problems with thinking that my focus, my aim, is to have an artwork when I finish this 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, is that I'm going to start to focus on not making any mistakes. I'm going to be very focused on analysing the marks and the lines I put to make sure they're all correct, because I don't want to draw anything wrong and ruin my artwork or make it look less professional. But it's very unhelpful to have a focus of not making mistakes rather than a focus of doing what I need to do to learn to draw. And if we get halfway through a drawing and it's looking great, then the fear that we're going to ruin it and ruin the artwork, which of course negates the whole point of the drawing session, can become unbearable. And I've had many people tell me that if they make mistakes at the start, they get discouraged and don't want to go on. But if they get halfway through and they haven't made any mistakes, that the stress, the thought that they will now make a mistake and mess it up can become so unbearable that they stop drawing as well, even when they haven't made a mistake. Another thing that I think comes from this artwork mentality is that it will lead us to adopt practices which are focused towards us having as professional looking an artwork at the end as is possible. And I think the most common danger here is that we start to copy the drawings of other artists, because that's a lot easier than drawing our own original one. And we may not appreciate that or why that's the case. But if we think for a minute, what's happening when I'm copying from another drawing? What's happening is I'm looking at lines and marks made by a pen or a pencil, whatever, and I'm looking at how they've been placed, and I'm seeking to place my own marks, usually as closely as possible, in the same ways on my paper to create something that looks as close as possible to what the artist has already done. And I may become very good at copying, because copying is a skill. The problem is it's not the skill that we need or use when we do our own drawings, our own original drawings from photos or our imagination or wherever. Because when I copy the marks that someone else has already put on the paper, I have no idea why they used them, why they chose them, what they chose them from, for what purpose they were putting them. And usually I can't even see the reference that they were using, so I can't even try and work out, oh, for this sort of thing, they've done this. I'm literally just copying their marks to create the effect they created. Now, if I want to become a copyist, that's great. If I just want to have an artwork at the end, no problem, as long as you have the artist's permission, because copying from someone else's drawing does infringe copyright. But if I want to learn to draw, while this practice is a shortcut to a nice looking artwork, it actually doesn't teach me any of the skills I need. And it may just lead to discouragement, as I'm mystified as to why I can do some drawings so well, but don't even know where to start when I go to do my own. And now we come to the final point, which I think is equally important to the one that's just come before. But that's that somehow, for some reason, we think that learning to draw, that learning to do art properly in some way, is fundamentally different to learning any skill. And I think it's partly all the very unhelpful baggage of thinking about talent, and that somehow if we have talent, or if someone has said along our way that we have talent, then there's this presumption that it's easy, that it's natural, because talent seems to be something in the common understanding of the word that flows easily and naturally. And the truth is, I'm not sure there's a satisfactory explanation or definition of the concept of talent, and even if there were, it would probably be different for different areas of activity. But it seems to me that if natural talent means anything at all, it's more to do with the fact that maybe some people are born with a desire to do things, with an interest in visual things rather than more conceptual things. It's not that I can learn to draw more easily than someone else, but simply that I want to learn to draw more than someone else or wants to learn to draw. And so I put the perseverance in, I put the time in, I put the consistency in. And it's not too long before I'm ahead of my peers at school in drawing who weren't so interested and who didn't put the same time and effort and consistency into drawing. It's easy to think that somehow I've just been born able to do this ahead of the level of everybody else. But when we're learning to draw, we should think, how do I learn any skill? How do I learn to cook, to sing, to throw the discus, to play a musical instrument, to learn a language? What's the process of learning that? If I'm a self-taught artist, that would be a great model to use to map out, if you like, my self-taught art learning journey. Because so many of the principles and the strategies of how we teach and how we learn are actually not subject specific. As a trained high school teacher, I can tell you that it didn't matter what subject you taught, because the overwhelming bulk of what we needed to learn about learning and teaching was common regardless of what subject area we were teaching in. And the truth is, we learn to draw and we try and draw for all sorts of different reasons. And it can just be for relaxation. It can just be for entertainment. We may genuinely enjoy watching a lot of how to draw videos because we find them entertaining, not because we really want to draw that way. and there's nothing wrong with any of that. But if I'm wanting to learn to draw and improving my drawing, I do believe that these 6 mindsets, these 6 ways of thinking, which I have found very common in dealing with drawing students and just people I've interacted with, very unhelpful. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. If you have any other mindsets that you've had and maybe come to recognize and work through because you realize they weren't helpful for your drawing improvement, I would love to hear them in the comments below. But hey, whatever your drawing journey is, however you're learning, whatever you're producing, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.